public education and outreach, which, like this webinar, is in partnership with the Co. So please disregard that portion. Unfortunately, my PowerPoint wouldn't let me update that. So respiratory diseases are the third leading cause of death and have the highest hospitalization rate in Canada, which is where we come in. We help with the 1 in 5 Albertans that have one of over 40 lung diseases, and that number is rising. So for example, we have over 20,000 Albertans participating in our Radon Kit rental program, which is available through the Lacombe Library System. We've educated over 30,000 school children and the public provincially on lung health as well as vaping, which is through our Breathe Smart program in schools and public centers, which include the Tell Us World Science. We've also assisted over 300 children and families in need of respiratory equipment at the Stollery Children's Hospital and through our Aero Chamber program, as well as this year we've expanded to include the Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary. Both hospitals have the largest catchment in the world for pediatric respiratory care. We're actually also planning the first lung transplant recovery center in Canada, which also has one of the highest catchment rates in the world. We service not only Alberta, but all the territories, Northern BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And we also have our peer support and education program for patients of lung disease and caregivers. And currently we sit at over 500 patient members. Okay, so what is radon? You may have heard of it. It has been in the news a lot lately. It's a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas that's produced naturally by uranium breaking down in the soil. It's what's considered natural radiation, which is found all over. You can find it in the sun, plants. Bananas are actually slightly radioactive as well. And in most cases, this is very slight exposure. It's generally not going to cause harm, but radiation causes damage, which increases our cancer risk by stealing electrons from the molecules in our body, which includes DNA. So every year we get about 2 to 5 millisieverts, which measures radiation in human bodies. And the average X-ray is usually 0.1 to 4 millisieverts, so it's quite low. And radon makes up roughly half of our radiation exposure. And for every 100 becquerel increase, which is how we measure radiation, there's the 16% increase in risk of lung cancer. And 1 in 5 or more homes exceed the recommended level of 200 by Health Canada. And that number is rising rapidly. The WHO recommends 100, which we recommend for those with lung disease as the level to take action. So how does radon enter your home? Through cracks, openings, gaps in the foundation, your walls or floors, they all provide routes of entry. The air pressure inside a home is normally lower than the pressure underneath or around your foundation. So this difference in pressure can act like a vacuum. It'll draw radon in through those cracks and other openings. And as you can see from that diagram, there's all sorts of different ways that your radon can move up from the soil into your home. Through groundwater, through your sump pump, even well water. Also, things like your windows, wood stoves, fireplaces, ventilation units, they can all affect the way radon enters your home. And if you are on solid soil, like granite or clay, it'll slow down that movement of radon, which lowers your radon exposure. But if you have a home that's on gravel or sand, it can move much quicker. Okay. So Canada, like I mentioned, has some of the highest levels of radon in the world. It's found in every building in Canada. There are no areas of the country that are radon free. So you can see we tend to have fairly high levels in Alberta. And even though we have hot spots like this map shows, two homes built side by side can have different radon levels based on different building practices and different soils, as well as different home use practices. If you're someone who has a window open, even in the winter, on a regular basis, your radon exposure can be different than your neighbor who might keep the window closed all winter. So as we mentioned, radon damages the DNA in your cells. It is a known carcinogen. It's suspected to be the main cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, which we discovered when higher than expected rates of lung cancer were showing up in the scans of uranium miners. So lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in Canada, and the rates in non-smokers are rising rapidly for reasons that we're not entirely sure of, but research is being done. And one of the leading hypotheses is radon. There are biomarkers that can link radon-related damage to our cells to lung cancer, and it's being done globally, including at the University of Calgary. In 2027, a clinical trial will be started to look at these biomarkers in humans. It's currently being done on lung tissues in the lab, and it's going to move into human trials in 2027. The reason why radon radiation is so dangerous is the type of radon. It is what's known as alpha track radiation. So, for example, when you get an X ray, it's much weaker radiation because it's gamma rays. That radiation is much slower. Alpha track radiation puts all of its energy towards the first thing it hits. And the reason it leads to lung cancer and not skin cancer is physical. Our respiratory system is built against things like dust and bacteria through nasal hair and mucus, but not gas. So when we inhale radon gas, it damages the inner lining of our lungs, making it its way to our DNA. Whereas our skin has a layer of dead skin cells, which absorbs most of it before it ever reaches the deeper layers of skin. I'm showing a diagram here that shows how it gets into your cells. And you might notice a little diagram here, alpha tailchin. That is the microscopic form of radon gas that goes in and damages the molecules of your DNA. Okay, so with radon levels rising, we have a couple of strong hypotheses as to why. One of the biggest ones is climate change. Melting permafrost is a major container for Canada's radon stores in uranium. That permafrost is melting at a really quickly rate, so we are getting more radon released. As a northern country, we are highly susceptible to climate change changes. So things like melted permafrost, things like higher temperatures, and changing wind patterns all increase our radon exposure. Okay. Our building practices are also affecting our radon exposure. So a study in 2024 done across Canada, including the University of Calgary's radon lab, showed that exposure is nearly 2.5 times the number as compared to 10 years ago. And in this study, exposure was considered levels over 200, which is Health Canada's recommended limit. In homes that were built in the 1940s and earlier, it was considered 1 in 9 homes were at elevated risk. Whereas nowadays, 1 in just over 4.5 homes built. So between 2000 and 2020, we're seeing that number rise rapidly. A couple of reasons for these are homes are built more airtight for energy savings. So things like double glazed windows, for example. This is great for energy savings, but it limits our ventilation. Homes are taller, the airflow can stagnate, and we have a higher surface area of radon exposure because they're built wider. Without adequate ventilation, our air quality goes down and the radon doesn't dissipate naturally like it would if we had good airflow. For example, Sweden has really similar radon levels to us as a northern country, but their houses are built with a lot of ventilation uh, into the building practices, which we do not have in our building practices code currently. So our exposure is higher than Sweden. So there are a couple of myths about radon. You may have heard of a radon rough-in. This is what's known as the beginning of a radon mitigation system, but it isn't functional. Depending on the province and territory, in Alberta, it is required, but not enforced, that if your home was built between 2010 and 2024, that you need a radon rough-in. This is going to be a space where you have a radon mitigation system built in, which helps funnel radon out of your home. This is something that requires a certified professional to complete. And sometimes people will wonder, isn't radon only in the basement? All homes have some method of air mixing and heating. So radon isn't only in the basement. It, like anything that is gaseous, will rise and dissipate across the home. And for testing, if I test for a few weeks, isn't it enough? So one thing with radon that we recommend is that tests are 90 days long because it gives us a good average. With radon, levels can fluctuate quite a bit depending on if doors are open, if there's more ventilation in the home, when your doors and windows are open. So testing in winter, which we recommend usually between end of September to October, up until end of May or start of May. That's when we say that's a accurate time to do your testing. A quick summer test would be inaccurate just because you're opening those doors and windows a lot more often. And as you can see from the graph on the right, it can create what's known as monitoring false alarms and false securities. Okay, so the research group that found that levels are rising due to permafrost also found that rural communities tend to have a higher risk of radon exposure. Grilled groundwater wells are a really high exposure rate because of the pathway for radon. So it's considered what's known as a super highway for radon. So Dr. Pearson, who's a radon researcher at Evict Radon and the Godarzi Lab at the University of Calgary's Radon Lab, has suggested that detached homes have higher exposure. Row houses and apartment buildings aren't immune either, though. Any residence has a potential for higher radon, regardless of whether they're rural or urban. And for example, we tested a high-rise condo in Alberta in the basement and the penthouse suite last year in the middle of winter, and both levels were over 400. This is because elevators and stairways and doors act as pathways for that radon to move up and down that building. And if you want to learn more about that cross-Canada radon study, it was released in October 2024, and you can learn more about it at our podcast. The link is shared below. So how do you test? There's a few different ways to test. We recommend the alpha tracker because it tracks the alpha radiation. Again, as I mentioned, 90 days is the most accurate. If you use the 90-day single test, it looks a bit like a pop tab, and you would place that in your home for 90 days, and afterwards you would send it out to get your results. You can also buy a continuous monitor, which would give you a level continuously. But you need to ensure that your test is Health Canada approved. There's a lot of tests out there that might not be accurate. So, for example, we have tested charcoal radon tests and found that they do not tend to be accurate after 90 days. You can check for approved models at c-nrpp.ca/testing for radon. We recommend to place the test in the lowest level of your home where you spend at least 4 hours a day. Or, for example, if it's your workspace, the lowest level of your workspace, away from fans, heat ducts, ventilation, heat, moisture, and bright lights. All of them can affect your levels. We also recommend keeping it away from electronics. Electronics can attract dust, which in itself is slightly radioactive, and it can alter your radon monitor's sensitivity levels. Okay, so I'm going to play a video that shows you how to run through your test kit. Let me know if you can hear it. Just gonna check the chat here real quickly. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good
it's
to
not
know.
coming through, Jamie.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll check here. Okay, how about now?
Is the air in your house putting you at a higher risk for cancer? The easiest way to find out? Order a radon test kit.
Okay, perfect.
Radon is a radioactive gas caused by the natural breakdown of uranium in soil. Radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, which is the leading cause of cancer deaths in Canada. You can order a radon test kit at ablung.ca/radon. Follow the instructions that come with the kit you order. Register your detector ID, which you can find on the box at homeradon-test.ca/kit/create. In general, you'll want to put it in the lowest inhabited level of your home. Don't put it in a furnace room, garage, kitchen, or bathroom. Put it in a regularly used room with normal ventilation and humidity away from doors and windows, and leave the test alone for 3 months. Make sure to keep the packaging. And now, while we wait, it's time to play
Radon or not. True or false? Radon is only an issue in old homes. False. Radon can be present in new homes as well, and a number of factors can impact your radon levels. While some areas are known for higher radon levels, it is specific to each individual dwelling. Things like ceiling height, soil type, and renovations like energy-efficient double-glazed windows that affect air tightness can all have an impact. True or false? I have a radon rough-in. I'm protected from radon. False. A rough-in makes it easier to add a future radon mitigation system by having space for it. It is not a radon mitigation system itself. Thanks for playing Radon or Not.
3 months later, put the test kit in the provided return mailer and send it back. The lab will send results back to you, along with suggestions on next steps. If your radon level is above 200 becquerels, you should take action to ensure your indoor air is safe If someone in your home has existing lung issues, safe levels may be even lower. To learn more about radon and order a test kit, visit ablung.ca/radon.
Mm. Oh, let's see if I can't get this to stop here.
Is the air in
Just going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Let me know if you can see it.
Yep, it's up, Jamie.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so there is a way to check your radon exposure in millisieverts. So that's on your body versus just 200 becquerels, which is a good way to understand how that radiation can affect your body. So what you would need is a long-term household radon level. So you would need your test result. You can use that either from the monitor or you can use it from your monitor test results. That's that 90-day test kit that looks like a pop tab. What that test would do is it would measure the amount of punctures in a polycarbonate film. That is the same stuff that is used to make bulletproof glass. So the number of punctures in that bulletproof glass material is measured by that lab, and that's how you would get your score of what your radon level is. You would take that level and the number of hours you would approximately spend per year in that space. So if you have two properties, you split that time in between. So for example, if my level is at 145 becquerels and I spend 10 hours a day in the home on a work day, 16 on non-work days, and I've lived there for 2 years and I'm away 2 weeks per year for vacation or travel, I would pop that into this calculator and I'll go back here and I show you the website for it. It's evictradon.org. That is the Goodarzi lab at University of Alberta, or sorry, University of Calgary, my mistake, /radon exposure calculator. And after this webinar, if anyone wants the access put to that, I can provide that. So I popped in my results here. My results showed a alpha radiation dose to the lungs of 4 millisieverts per year. And we say that the exposure is estimated based on your lifetime relative risk of lung cancer for someone who doesn't smoke tobacco or nicotine or vape. And this would include oral tobacco, which includes pouches like Zonic. So my level was 4 with a total exposure of 8 over the entire period that I lived in that current home. So I'm above the worldwide and national average. The majority of Canadians are. So my level is comparable to a CT scan. The average Canadian rate is 3.6. So I'm right in between the middle. The worldwide average is actually under that. It's 1.2. So it's quite low. And again, we are quite high because of our northern climate and the level of uranium in our soil. For contrast, a mammogram would have 0.2 millisieverts. By living in that household, I've had a mammogram or abdomen, pelvis, spine, or heart CT scan level of radiation within 2 years. If I have lived that in my entire equivalency time, which is considered about 20 years, my rate would be about 5 times higher than the average person. Okay, so how do we mitigate, how do we deal with radon if our levels are high? The most effective and reliable technique is what's known as active soil depressurization, also known as mitigation. A fan is attached to a pipe which is continuously run to draw radon from your home underneath, and then it's vented outside where it's diluted. The pipe has two portions. One is discharge, one is vent. Through the suction point, it'll reverse that air pressure difference between the house and the soil, reducing the amount of radon that's drawn into the home. The average cost can be variable. It usually about 1,000, but it can range from 700 to 4,000. And cost does depend on a few factors like size of your home, age, how it was built. So, for example, homes that are on stilts or that are raised tend to be a bit of a higher cost because you need to go in and modify the foundation. And if it has a radon rough-in. This method is known to reduce radon levels within 3 months by 90% or more. It's recommended to do a radon test after you implement active soil depressurization to ensure it's been done correctly. Another mitigation method is heat recovery ventilation or energy recovery ventilation. So this ventilator can be installed to increase ventilation, essentially, which will help reduce radon levels. It works by introducing outdoor air, and then we'll use the heated or cool air being exhausted to cool or warm the incoming air. What this does is it greatly increases the amount of ventilation in your home. Oh, I see that that Jordan has shared the chat. Thank you. The effectiveness of this method is not actually well understood. It can be limited. It's only appropriate for situations where only a modest reduction of radon is needed. And it's generally the most successful in homes that are more airtight and have low natural ventilation. So a home that is not drafty. This method would be more appropriate for newer homes rather than older homes. Generally, you'll see a reduction of 20 to 50%. An HRV can be anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500. And there's also operating costs involved for the electricity and the fans. But some do prefer this method because it also assists with heating and cooling. We're just going to skip that. Okay, it's not going to let me skip that. Uh, Jordan,
Yep,
I'm just wondering if I have co-host permissions because whenever there's a video, I have to stop sharing in order to skip the video.
let me just see. There you go. Should be better now. I'm hoping, Jamie.
Okay, perfect. So I will share my screen again.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no worries. Technology. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there are resources available for radon education, mitigation, and assistance. If you are curious about radon but aren't sure whether you should do a full 90-day test, we have partnered with over 250 libraries across the province to provide 3-week rentals of test kits that are free with library membership. This snapshot will help give you an idea of what your radon levels are. It does not replace a full test because it is only 3 weeks, but we do recommend that if your levels are near or over 100 after 3 weeks, that you should use the full 90-day test. This also helps us give a map of radon levels in Alberta. The map that you have seen is extrapolated from data that is currently existing, but it is an incomplete map. So feedback surveys using this program will help us create a fuller map of radon in Alberta. In addition, every region will have one participant that is entered into a raffle, and they will win a continuous radon monitor. For more information, you can contact your local library. So Lacombe, as mentioned earlier, does have access to this program. Or you can also contact myself at health promotions at ablung.ca. So we do have a partnership with Take Action on Radon to provide information that is multicultural and information that is also accessible in your language of origin. So we do have informational bookmarks and postcards available in French, Tagalog, Punjabi, Italian, and Chinese. We're also working with communities to translate it into Cree. You can find this information at takeactiononradon.ca. And as mentioned, I will share all these links in the chat below afterward. Okay. Because of the links to cancer as well as the double risk known to smokers that are exposed to radon, the Canadian Cancer Society does have a helpline. The White Ribbon campaign will offer free 90-day radon testing kits for those affected by lung cancer and their families during the month of November, which is considered Radon Month. The program is Canada-wide and it can be accessed on the Take Action on Radon website. They also offer free radon tests for those who contact the Smokers Helpline and Cancer Information Line. However, this is limited due to supplies, as well as it is only during radon season, which, as mentioned before, is during the fall and winter, as well as early spring. Okay, so we have some supports for mitigation costs. Health Canada has a federal grant that can help offset the cost 2 to 3,000 usually. This program aims to provide financial support to those who have been diagnosed with lung cancer and those considered low to moderate income households. The link there is below. If you have any questions about this program, please let me know. Okay, some key takeaways here are that radon is natural, it is radioactive, it's the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smoking Canadians, the rate of which is rising. And Canada does have high levels of radon, which are only increasing due to climate change. But we have a pretty easy way to protect ourselves, which is to test your living space, your workspace, and if your level is above the limit, to take action. When you do your test, do it during radon season. It's more accurate that way. Place your test away from doors, windows, furnaces, electronics, drafts, areas of humidity, heat, and cold. And if your levels are over 200, mitigate. Generally, 2 to 600 becquerels means mitigate within 2 years. Over 600, mitigate within a year. If you or someone in your household has lung disease or lung cancer, the recommendation is to mitigate at over 100. Now, you may have noticed that I did not mention any sort of legislation regarding radon. That is because radon is not actually legislated in Alberta beyond needing a rough-in for homes built after 2015 and sellers disclosing high radon levels when they sell their home, which is something that a real estate agent would handle. Currently, we do not have a radon program in Alberta. Some provinces, like for example, BC, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, do have programs where the government will provide mitigation assistance, have testing mandates, and provide access programs for radon testing. We are currently engaging with the provincial government to add radon testing and mitigation into the green energy and energy efficiency financial programs because we believe it is a health equity issue and that when we have energy efficiency protocols and initiatives like new furnaces and the double glazing windows, it is correlated to a higher level of radon. So it makes sense not to replace one issue with another. Okay. All right. So we also have a initiative where you can win a radon monitor by contacting us at healthpromotions@ablung.ca to receive our feedback survey. And when you send back the complete survey, you'll be entered into a draw to win a radon monitor. With our radon program currently, up until April 30th, we will be offering a discount through Health Canada on the homeradon.test.ca website. If you are interested in accessing that promo code for a discount when you purchase your kit, you can contact me again at healthpromotions@ablung.ca. Thank you for your time, everyone, and thank you, Jordan, for having us.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie. I appreciate your time and the great presentation that you put on. If there are any questions, if you would like to drop them in the chat, there currently isn't any outstanding, so I think we're in pretty good shape, but we do have a bit of time left here. So the one thing that I did want to reiterate is that I think it's the Parkland, I think it's the regional library system
It
that
is,
does have
yes.
that does have the radon test kits. So for anyone listening, Alex, Bentley, um, Penhold, Innisfail, Sylvan Lake, Blackfalds, Lacombe, all will have access to that service. So if you're interested in picking up a 3-week one and then just seeing where your levels are at, I believe that's the intent of that program. Jamie, if there's anything else that you can add to that.
Yeah, sure. That is exactly the intent of the program. We are currently in the process of expanding the program, so there will be more kits available. We have gotten feedback that there's usually like a couple months of a wait list, so we are working with Health Canada to address that backlog, as well as with Lacombe and other rural adjacent communities in particular during the next radon season, which will start at the end of September. We will be doing more engagement, which includes mitigation assistance fund. This fund will engage with the users, the patrons of the library program to determine a patron of highest need. So a patient that has lung disease in the family, is low income, and does has very high radon levels. We will work with radon mitigation company to provide a mitigation for their home.
Very cool. Thank you, Jamie. We do have one question from Tanner. Um,
Sure.
there's the Airthings tester that was shown in the one slide. Is that a more accurate, like short-term test for radon?
Okay, so that test is preferred. However, with that test, we would say watch the levels for 90 days. That test is kind of unique in that it can be reused, but you would have to reset it after 90 days. So you can use it for different areas. So, for example, I've used one in the home and at work. But again, you would need to use it for 90 days. The test will give you your 90-day average, your 7-day average, and your current level.
Perfect. Thank you. I have one question for you, Jamie. On on the building codes like side of thing, is there any advocacy? Like, yeah, is there advocacy for adjusting building codes provincially or on a federal level to address the concerns about radon? I just know that as we are facing a housing crisis across most of our
Mhm.
country, that it and as new builds are coming up, if that's a consideration that's being taken through that process.
That's actually a really great question. Before the election was called, we were in talks with Health Canada um, to create a, a public interest group with other provincial lung organizations to push the government to having a clearly set mandate for provincial and federal building codes. So if we go provincially, it only applies to Alberta. If it's federal, it applies to all provinces, which is why it was a multi-provincial lung organization initiative. It's been put on pause because of the election, and we are awaiting to see the results of the election to see how we'll move forward with that initiative. Provincially, the concern is building more housing and not so much radon. So we are working with private builders as well as homeowner associations to ensure that they're aware of their rights and recognizing that it is an issue financially for some and providing ways that people can afford it and having financial assistance options is currently our main priority. We're also working with residential tenancy associations to promote it among landlord associations because that is one thing that has come up as a concern is people who rent their homes may not necessarily be able to test their homes and have a reliable slash avenue to address that high radon level. So we're working with them with landlord associations to fix that.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Excuse me.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming into the chat. If you would like to reach out to Jamie or myself with any additional questions, if you reach out direct to the county, I'll likely be asking the experts over at Alberta Lung. So if there's anything that you think about after this presentation and you have more questions on, either feel free to contact Alberta Lung directly or myself. I'd be happy to pass along those questions as well. Um, I want to thank Jamie again for being present today and presenting on radon. And thank you to everyone who decided to join. I appreciate the attendance, and it's always great to see people's participation.
I'm just going to put my email address in the chat instead of posting 6 or 7 links. If anyone has any inquiries about the research, the resources, or the testing website, they can email me directly.
Sounds good. And anyone who is in attendance today, I do have your email addresses on the Eventbrite sign up, and I can pass along the presentation if that's okay with you, Jamie, and
Yep,
any of the
that is,
links that are included.
yeah, sure, that is perfect.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you. Bye.